Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for coming along to the penultimate event in the Pontoon Virtual Symposium. Very pleased to welcome KEIKEN, who are I think I've pronounced that right, have I?
KEIKEN.
KEIKEN, sorry. I've only seen it written down a lot until now. So, okay, KEIKEN. The collaborative practice of artists co-founded by Tanya Cruz, Hannah Omori and Isabel Ramos in 2015, and they frequently work with multiple collaborators. Based between London and Berlin, they come from mixed diasporic backgrounds, Mexican, Japanese, European, Jewish. KEIKEN is Japanese for experience, and creating speculative worlds. They merge the physical and the digital. They call it the phygital, using moving image, CGI, gaming software, installation, virtual augmented reality, programming, and gamified performance. They're interested in simulating new structures and ways of existing and exploring how societal introjection governs the way we feel, think, and perceive. Their recent projects include solo exhibition Augmented Empathy, Fact Liverpool 2020, and they have been involved with the Yerevan Digital Biennial, which was this year, and they did a gamified performance for Transmedial at HKW Berlin, and have also done a project called Feel My Metaverse in collaboration with the George Jasper Stone for Jerwood Arts Collaborate, London, in 2019. So I think they are going to, they're happy to take questions as they go through their presentation. So feel free to use the chat box to do that if you want to type them, or I guess if it's all right with them, you can, if you have a question, you could just sort of pipe in and speak it to them. And I will hand over to KEIKEN. Thank you very much.
Hi.
Thank you.
Thanks. So we're KEIKEN, we're a collaborative practice, as you guys just heard, and we're just gonna, to start off this conversation, we're actually gonna show you a few minutes of a video we made recently about our work, and we're talking about our work. So, and a lot of the imagery that you'll see has actually been made as part of the Pontoon, which we were in residence with Aspects.
Exactly. Great. I'm going to share my screen in advance.
Or should we?
Is that working?
Yeah, should we stop our video for a second? So it's just.
Yeah. Oh, 1 second. How do I stop my video? Yeah.
Oh, I can't hear it, is it?
Oh, can you not? Can
No,
you
I'm
not hear
sure
anything?
I can't hear it. I'm not sure if anyone else can.
Let me just try. I think because it's not like the internet one. Let me just see. Share. Oh yeah, there. Let me see if that works. Share. Oh, there. I can do it now. Cool. Okay, I think that should be working now. Right, let's see.
We are KEIKEN, a collaborative practice who create gamified experiences.
Filmmaking, installation, augmented and virtual reality, and performance.
In our collaboration, we carve a space for one another to create and exchange ideas through interchangeable roles.
Together, we test drive impending futures in digital.
Since the beginning of our practice, we've clung on to this phrase. It's a bit of a joke amongst ourselves, but there is a reason why it's important. How does societal interjection govern the way we think, feel, and perceive?
The question is really asking, how does the reality that we perceive as actuality affect the way that we live our lives, and how does this affect our future? It's a pretty big question that definitely one person alone can't answer, but it seems more and more relevant every day.
This question leads to an ever more pressing one. How can we transform and imagine our potential future?
Our answer is 2 words: world building.
Every time you imagine a world differently to how we see our actual world in our daily lives, you are building it into existence. It now exists in this world in some shape or form, even if it's small to begin with, and even if it's only amongst ourselves.
In our collective approach, we place ourselves as the architects of our own space and time. In the real world, large-scale designs, structures, and systems are only driven by the autocracy of governmental bodies, capitalist investment, billionaires, and egomaniacal geeks.
Danny.
I don't know how to turn it back on. How do you do it?
1 second. Shall I
Oh, got
start
it.
sharing the presentation? Yeah, cool. I'll share that. Okay, great. So I'll go to the next slide. Can you guys see?
I can.
I can only actually see a black screen, but I'm not sure if that's just me.
Yeah, like 10. I can't. I can only see Danny.
Oh, it's dark. Oh, just a black screen over here too. Maybe Izzy, you could stop sharing your screen and then restart.
Oh, I
sharing
think
it. Oh no, it's come up now.
I think it's because, has the thing come up? I think it's because I paused on the other one. Okay,
Right,
stop it and start again. Yeah, that's better.
Okay.
Sorry guys for the miss.
Sorry about this.
We wanted it to be really sleek, but I don't think it's good.
Okay, that should work now.
So yeah, we were kind of gonna begin with like how we work collaboratively. We're over the next 4 slides. It's just kind of going over like kind of maybe the main stages of development over the years of how our practice has developed. So yeah.
So this first. Oh, sorry.
Oh, you go, Tanya.
Yeah, I was just going to explain that when we first started working together, we all studied at Falmouth University. We were studying fine art, and so one of the things that we did before we actually ever started making things together was we looked at our individual work and tried to kind of connect some dots and like recognize what were some of the themes that we were exploring individually that could connect us together. One of the main things that we encountered was this idea of experience or consciousness, whether that was to the experience of making a work or the experience or considering the experience of the audience or I don't know, yeah, that was kind of the main thing that connected us together at the beginning. So on this slide, you can kind of see some of the images of work we made individually before we started collaborating.
Yeah, and we were maybe making like, there was obviously some correlations, but there was also quite a lot of like differences and like what we're focusing on. But through sort of, I think we first started off almost, I don't know, we were already friends and we just decided, we're like, all right, we want to start a collective, and we're like, what should we call it? And then we like tried to come up with also what are all the things that connect us together and try and find like interconnections between them, and then from there on started to develop. So often just having a conversation in a group and just trying to find connections between you is a really great way to begin collaboration.
Also, like, it's you to like when you begin collaborating with someone, often it is like kind of unlikely, like it's kind of invisible how you are going to connect, and it's taken us like many years to be able to like even figure out our language as a collaborative practice. So I think like especially with the internet and like the sort of space and time we're in, it's really important to be able to find a community.
So this is our very early beginnings when we were collaborating together when we were at university. We actually started off KEIKEN on a Tumblr blog, and we would invite also lots of our friends to come and like post works on it, and we would also do sessions where we would just post different images alongside one another. So it was again this sort of way that we were testing and experimenting what connects us, how can we find a way to collaborate. We also made like a little installation where you can see the dinner table, and each this is our first installation we did, and each the idea was that so there was actually video screens inside the plates, and each represented a sort of different type of communication or consciousness, and you would sit round and sort of see how those like interconnected. And again, yeah, it was quite playful and experimental in a way. And I think what was great about Cornwall is we're really far removed from a city, so it gave us a lot of like freedom and to just experiment and not be necessarily influenced by. I think often when you're in a city, or like say you're in London, you get influenced a lot by what's going around you and what's the sort of trends. So it was really nice to have that sort of beginnings.
Sure. And next page.
Yeah, sure. Should I play this?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I wonder if it's gonna. I might have to. I'm gonna have to say. 1 second. I need to say about sharing the sound though. There. Hope that's all right. Oh, it's gone a bit slow, the internet. There, cool. Oh, go back. Yeah. So that piece actually was it's not just the three of us, so we kind of started it, but we've always worked with like many different collaborators, and when after we left uni, me and Tani were living in Berlin at that point. And we invited lots of people that we were like collaborating with and had exchanges with to come to Berlin. And because we'd found this like huge space which we could just use for free. And we tried to create a role-playing game, so an RPG game, and it was each collaborator got to, so basically because we use world building in our practice, we had overarching rules of like what this space could be and what we had to sort of abide by. So there'd be certain movements that we'd all do, like a word would come out and that would all keep us like in sync. But then each collaborator almost came up with their own character and mini world within the larger one. So what's great about collaboration and world building is it allows you to not only be part of a collective and get quite intricate with it, but also it allows an individual to work within that framework, which I think we started to find, I think in this stage of our practice, we really started to like push and explore that, especially through performance, because we were always interested in technology. However, we often at that point, and we would like do a lot of projections, and we did a lot of like live streaming. So for example, on the left hand side, we did an interactive performance at Tates and Ives U Studio, and we actually live streamed. I was in Berlin and Haruka was in Japan, so we live streamed in. So we were still trying to explore technology with our means, but we often found performance and collaborating lots of people was much more it was much more affordable for us to do that at that point.
There's some questions as well. There's one that's like, what type of worlds do you think you are representing the most? Because I was going to say in these worlds, the ones just, but these worlds, it was more about subverting reality, and it was more about creating an experience, so creating like another world that people could kind of like fall into, because we're interested in that kind of, how can you make people remember something? How can you make it so that people feel like they've seen the world differently for a moment, so then when they go into their real world or their reality, they see day-to-day life in a slightly different way. But then in the next ones, I think the worlds that we're representing the most are actually like, so these ones here are like always like lots of different worlds, so like this idea of a metaverse, and it's more about kind of not just showing the like utopian or dystopian perspective of how the future could be. It's very much like a speculative future and how they are networked and interconnected, and what are the possible routes, both in like an emancipatory way and in like what are the implications.
So just a bit of context, like a metaverse is it's like an idea that there would be this persistent sort of virtual reality space that would be which like many users would be able to interact and almost like exist in.
There's another question.
Let's have a look at the question.
So philosophically, is the world digital a conceptual framework that has enabled this collaboration? Philosophically, is the word digital a conceptual framework that has enabled this collaboration?
I'm not sure if it's necessarily been a framework, but I think it's definitely always been something that we've been exploring, or maybe not even just the digital itself, but actually this kind of, I guess, like questioning what is the difference between digital and physical, and is there a difference, and like the blurred lines of the two and how we perceive the reality is something that we've always explored.
Also, like speculative futures, like you can't really talk about the future without talking about the digital, so using digital
and like, even consciousness, we're always interested in consciousness. It's like you can't, like, it's really difficult to talk about consciousness when you don't, if you're talking about your present day society in the future, you can't talk about how technology is like affecting that. Also as well, after we left uni and we were in physically different places, so we started to like, I think it was always in just not only in the way like we're conceptually interested in like using technology, but also in the way that we collaborate. We've always relied on technology, because when you're in different spaces, we've always like worked on Google Drive, we've always done lots of like Skype calls before COVID, and it was a way that we could work with many different people from all over the world, but still keep working together, especially when, you know, that it's also like about accessibility as well, because sometimes you can't afford to like physically meet, or you can't afford to have a workspace all the time because it costs money to have a studio, for example.
I'm just like, now all I can think about is the penis drawing, but about the penis drawing, which is really funny, is that the video that we just showed you, what was really funny about that performance was that it was like durational. It took like, I don't know how many hours, it's pretty long, especially with
2 or 3, I think, at least.
Yeah, like Suze was in that fencing helmet, so it was like really intense for her. But what happened was that we were kind of doing all these strange things, and people didn't really understand why we were doing it. There was like some sort of like rules, but the audience didn't understand the rules that we were making. And also it was a group of women, and what ended up happening was that nearer the end, everyone had to close their eyes, and it was kind of the ending, and some guy completely took his clothes off when everyone had their eyes closed. And then we obviously told them to put their fucking clothes back on. But it's kind of interesting that sometimes, like,
it's interesting who's trying to control the space. When you subvert the reality, how does that make people behave amongst that? Who's controlling the space, and how does that power dynamics of what the reality we're used to gets challenged?
And also, how does that like confusion happen like over time? Like maybe he entered the space in the beginning and it wasn't. He's like, oh, okay, I just walked into a performance, I'm participating in this. But as the time progresses and you immerse yourself, he gets more and more immersed in the world. He gets more and more detached from his own reality. And that's when also it puts people in a situation where maybe they feel they can like act out in ways they wouldn't normally, because it's somehow dislocated or disconnected or something.
It's also a way to gain control, because no matter what he didn't like, there was nothing that he could do. Like, he was immersed in this space, and we weren't going to change our behavior because we were performing in the certain way that he didn't understand. And I think, because I watched him during the night, and he was getting more and more like, you could feel some sort of like agitation. I think he did take his top off at one point during the performance, and it was almost like a way of like showing some dominance, I think.
Definitely.
Shall I move on to like...
Oh, somebody talked about the, shall we go to the...
Yeah, there's a few questions we've missed. Harriet has said, I'm also interested in what software you use to produce the 3D animations, etc.
So we use... Are we going to talk about that a bit later? But we use a gaming engine called Unreal, which is actually free to use, but you need to make sure you have it's more just the computer power, I think, that can be the problem. But it's amazing because when you're making a film, if you were to use like other like normal softwares, like other 3D softwares such as like Cinema 4D or even Blender, if it takes so long to render out a piece, like it's so painfully slow, and so it's really hard. If you ever wanted to make like a long film, it's really difficult unless you have loads of money and loads of time to be able to do it. Whereas when you work in Unreal, because it's in a gaming engine, you can record and like render out so much faster. So we were able to make sort of 35-minute, 40-minute films using and making the films in Unreal.
Shall we show, because I think it's only like, there's not actually much more time, so we could just show some of the tech stuff, and we can also something about showing the more practical side, because we've got like, this is the practical side, which is very much like so one of the main things that we did was like, okay, so we were at Falmouth Uni, we don't have any connections to London, we moved to London, to Berlin, how the hell do we get an opportunity? And like the only thing we can think of is the internet. So we straight away really concentrated on social media, learning the tools, learning how to speak the language, learning how to promote ourselves. And so, you know, when we moved up, after a few months of trying this, we got like a first talk with some sort of university, and then we got an exhibition, and just slowly, kind of like pitter patter type thing, it just started to expand. But even now, like if like we get contacted by even museums now through Instagram, which I think is always, I find really funny and fascinating. But I think social media really has been like the way that we kind of communicate to a larger audience and keep them up to date, I guess.
Yeah, because not only do you connect to a larger, wider audience, but in terms of just being able to grow KEIKEN and like get opportunities and get professional like jobs through it and exhibitions, it's really been, we've focused so much attention like on those early years, especially when we first moved to London, on like, right, testing so different strategies, like how do we increase followers, how do we keep like interest, how do we keep like engagement going, how do we show our work on there. So often posting loads, and we often design our feed so that so we want it to look good. We also do regular stories as well. We tag people want to see you making like a community online. And then we started when Instagram made available that you could start making filters, and it was the first yet to apply, and it was in the beta stages. So we're one of the first people to do this, and again, that was a way of develop, like it was a kind of easy, was when you first were part of it, because there weren't many people doing it, loads of people had to follow you to get your to be able to access your filters or save your filters. So it was a way that we could have increase a number of followers, and we've managed to get like different filter jobs through that as well.
And we also connected to a wider community of other artists and like practitioners online who we've since met in person, and actually, you know, we share skills and resources through this community. And you know, I noticed that someone asked the question, did you learn techniques and softwares on your own? And well, that's kind of, we've been teaching ourselves how to do a lot of these things. And also I guess along the way we've made friends with people who are maybe they have a bit more experience in certain softwares, and we'll learn things from them. But a lot of it is just encouraging one another, and a lot of online tutorials.
And even just stuff like trying to teach each other stuff, and also like finding people. Like often a lot of softwares have communities, so we'll start to make friends with people, so we know who we can kind of rely on to ask for a question or something.
Reaching out to people.
There's different groups, like for example the Spark AR, like AR1 has like people, like has different groups, and you can like find, if you don't know what to do, or like you have a question about something, you can just write on the group and people can help you, and people are really willing to help you as well. There's also, if you're a woman or non-binary, you can join a group called like DigiGirl as well, which is just like, I think they have various things, but there's a WhatsApp group. So if you ever, people post like jobs on there, people like post if people don't know what to do with, if you want some tech advice, like, so it's kind of like a resource, a free resource to learn and speak to other people on. We also on our stories recently just opened up people to ask questions about how we operate. So we'll just talk a little bit about that.
I guess like a lot of the way in which we operate is like, well, a lot of the way in which we've had to learn over the years isn't just like us, like what is our creative practice? Obviously your creative practice is like integral, and we did a lot of experimenting, especially at the beginning. We're quite experimental, I think, in general, but but over the years it's also like a lot about professionalism and like how do we organize ourselves as a team, how do we make it so that over the years we still feel fulfilled with what we do, and that we like can like learn from one another and keep growing, and it still becomes this thing that we love and we care about. And I think a lot of that has been also very practical, like being able to like manage our finances, manage like our opportunities, admin, social media, lots of stuff. Sometimes we feel like we like live on our Google Drive pretty much. But yeah, I think that's a very like relevant and important topic to talk about, and I think often people don't talk about that, but that is just as much part of your arts practice. Your arts practice, if you want to make money off it, you have to obviously learn the business of it. And yeah, so that's something that we feel quite important to like be quite open or transparent about when we speak to people.
This is just like this is just literally like a screenshot of our like Google Drive. Not all of it is like necessarily organized, but we always have, for example, we always have a folder which is like our current projects, and we have every different folders of what those current projects are, and then these go into past projects. We have applications, press, resources, and then we're often just doing a lot of like to do lists and like production plans, and sharing. So it's not very exciting, but it has been a way that but it's really been like a way that we've managed to run our practice and work together, and it's great because you can obviously work on the same document at the same time. I'm sure everyone's really used to this, but this is just how we organize it basically.
Yeah, I think Hannah also said that she was wondering if how the present situation with COVID and social distancing has affected or grown our way of working together and our ideas. And I was going to say that actually one thing that, because before COVID we never had a studio, we've always kind of either one of us has lived in one country and the two in the other, or vice versa. Like we've always kind of lived not really in the same area since we graduated from university. Because of that, we've actually been very accustomed to working online and spending hours over Skype, spending like hours working on the Google Drive together. I think that when the pandemic first happened, it was actually very easy for us to adapt. I mean, I think we're quite good at adapting to situations anyway, but because we were so used to working online, I think that there was almost like not really a transition for us. It was quite natural.
One thing is just like constantly we're just trying to really like, a lot of it's like producing and being able to manage our time better and being more professional and stuff like that. Like how do you organize like so like emails Monday morning from 9 to 11, sticking to that. If you don't finish something, then you do it between 9 and 10 the next day, or like only two of us go to this meeting and then the other person does this person wants to learn this thing, so how do we facilitate that? So there's a lot of kind of like managing stuff that we're,
and I do think that the pandemic and being in COVID actually did force us to be a bit more like rigid with our structure in that sense. Not necessarily rigid, just more just trying to manage efficiency and not exhaust ourselves, because everyone knows how tiring it is to be on a video call every hour for like all day.
Should we go on to the like, there's the collaboratives page and there's the Unreal. Oh, so we couldn't have done KEIKEN without our collaborators. This is just like an image of some of the collaborators and to show you all of us working.
Yeah, but it really is a collaboration on the time of so many people.
Yeah,
particularly the pet rat. And then the next page is
and obviously people might have like I think yeah, and also I mean Reese oh sorry, this one. Hello?
Hey.
I think your thing cut out like in a really strange way. It was like you were saying something, but then.
Oh, okay. Can you see it?
Yeah.
What were
Okay,
you
cool.
saying though?
Oh no, it was just because I think it's slightly cut out, that's all.
Oh, okay. Okay, I'll say something. And so this is like us working in Unreal. We just thought we'd show you it. Like, definitely this has become like one of the main central tools that we use, and we're completely self-taught. We also wanted to show you motion, like facial mocap, which Tani can show you now.
Okay,
I'm going to stop
that
sharing.
up a second. Okay, that's 1 second. I'll just do a minute.
Have you got your share your?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I was just setting it up.
You can see your.
Could you see me making a weird face? Okay. So can everybody see my screen?
Not yet. Oh yeah,
No?
no. Yeah.
Okay, can you see? Yeah. So we just wanted to give you guys like a quick demo of some of the things that we've been doing this year. We've spent a long time working in these softwares. They're by Real Illusion, and this one we're working in now is called KEIKEN. And it basically gives us the capability to do live facial motion capture. So I'm actually looking into my phone right now, which is set up into the software. But it's just, yeah, it's recording everything that we're doing. And this has been really, really fun to play around with, because it's just kind of, I mean, before we were using the software, we were building all our characters in another free software called Daz, which was extremely limiting. But one of the really cool things about this software is that it allows you to feed in a really high-res image of someone's face, and it will this AI, it has this AI plugin that will automatically map that face to the character. So the character that we're looking at right now is one that we made maybe about a couple of weeks ago for a project that we did with Sheffield Doc Fest, and we've actually taken like an image of Izzy's face, and we've made this model, which we then have actually kind of edited it quite a lot. It doesn't really look like Izzy anymore.
We decided we didn't like her face, so we'd just change it.
Yeah. But yeah, it's been really cool, because I mean, we're always really interested in narrative and kind of, you know, actually being able to have like, I guess like a high quality output. And over the years, I think we've gone from really actually not knowing how to do anything to kind of getting to a point where now we're starting to figure out how to do the things that we actually want to do at quite a high standard, which has been, I think actually without COVID, we might not have got here, because we were all, for example, Hannah and I were working in separate jobs at the same time as doing KEIKEN, so we didn't have as much time. And Izzy's still working her job, but both Hannah and I lost our
Didn't
jobs.
lose her job due to KEIKEN.
I think, like, someone asked a question here, could you all talk briefly about the employment side of your practice, how working digitally enabled you all to become financially independent or not? So yeah, Hannah and Tani unfortunately like lost their jobs, but then it's a weird thing, because it's just like, in some respects it's like it really pushed you guys to have like a lot more time to like focus more on like the creative and like skills learning, whereas I'm still working like part-time, and even though that makes it a bit more financially secure, it means that you've got less time to maybe do the creative, or you got less time on it. So it's a real like balance. But for years we pretty much were always working other jobs. It's very difficult to get completely financially independent. You just have to keep building it up as you go. And also what we do, technique that we use as well, is we often try and plan like long term. So we think, okay, what are the things that we actually want to make, like what are the things we want to learn, what kind of work do you want to make this about. And we often like will have several projects, and we'll just have each project the extension of the next. So rather than almost like starting from again where you can't like achieve as much, we're constantly building on that previous project, part of the whole same thing. And this allows you to have a much longer term goal, because it's really, we're getting to a stage now where we really want to be able to have lots more time. I mean, probably the only time that we actually were given like time has been when we did the residency at Aspects, which was like also funded by Pontoon, which was great because we actually had loads of time to really develop our work and work with different collaborators. But in general, apart from that, we often get like quite, either it's not properly funded, or it's a very short time span, so it's really difficult to sometimes produce what you want to make. So yeah, we'd advise like really thinking about what it is you want to make and like having different stages to get there.
I also wanted to say that actually by learning digital skills, we've actually got to a point where now we're in a position where we can actually, get commercial jobs doing certain different digital skills that we wouldn't have been able to do before. So actually having, like, because we persevered, it's also, not only has it helped us like kind of push our artistic practice, but it's also like, offering a bit more stability and livelihood in that sense.
Sorry to interrupt, but I'm afraid our time is up. So
That's okay.
thank you so much for your presentation. It was excellent. I love the way that the three of you kind of bounced off each other, the kind of mixture of different sorts of imagery and, into your practice has been really good. Sorry about your Zoom bomber or hacker. With skills like that, he'll probably win the turn of life. But I hope you get that sorted out. So thanks again for coming, KEIKEN, Hannah, Isabel, Tanya, and thanks so much to everyone for coming on. I think we had the record number of questions and comments for this, so it's obviously
that's great.
And maybe the conversation can continue afterwards if people can drop you an email or.
Yeah, absolutely.
Also DM us on Instagram as well.
Yeah, we just answer to DMs. That's the
exactly. We're tired of emails now.
Okay, all right. Thanks everybody.
So much.
Thank you so much.
Thanks everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye bye now.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.